black market are thriving, trying to eat our breakfast, lunch and dinner. But there is a disconnect between the reality of what the industry do and the public debate. Trust and follow your instincts. Be yourself and get yourself a personal board of directors to invest in your own development.
Grainne, there'll be lots of people watching this who know exactly what the Betting and Gaming Council do, but I'm guessing there might be some people who don't. What does it do and what's your role?
So the Betting and Gaming Council is the standards body for the regulated sector in the UK. So we have 90% of the UK's betting and gaming operators, suppliers, huge diverse mix of members, including land-based casinos, online bingo, high street betting shops, and then your big global British success stories that have expanded internationally, like Flutter, Bet365, Entain, Evoke. So we're a diverse bunch.
Excellent. Okay, and you've been here, I think, sort of 7 or 8 months, appointed in September last year. How's it going?
Yeah, really well. So obviously with every new job, it's a challenge to get settled in and get your head around the issues and set the strategy out. I guess I'm lucky a bit in that regard because I've been working in the industry for 10 years, so not necessarily a fresh pair of eyes. But yeah, we've had lots to do, lots coming up on the radar, obviously trying to deliver the rest of the white paper, outstanding elements which we hope will get over the line this year. But there's lots of other policy issues. We obviously had an announcement from the Treasury earlier this week on a tax consultation, so never a dull day at the BGC.
I can imagine. One of the words you used at the start of that answer was challenge.
Yeah.
Now, I'm guessing that the list might be quite long, but what do you see as the main challenges for the British industry and therefore the BGC at the moment?
Yeah, so there's a few. We've obviously had a period where we were working through the Gambling Act Review white paper, which is, as the government said, a generational shift in policy. The BGC have broadly been supportive of the elements that are within that. There has been a £1 billion revenue hit, though, to the industry as a result of all of the white paper measures. So looking forward to delivering the outstanding elements on things like affordability checks and anti-money laundering codes so that the industry has a period of stability to get back to, thriving and playing its part in the growth agenda as it always has done. A few other hurdles to overcome. We have the Treasury consultation now, which is looking at harmonising the online gambling rates into a single tax, which I've been quite clear this week would be catastrophic, not only for BGC members, but also for horse racing's fragile finances. And then we have the growing threat of the black market. So the regulated members who are obviously in the BGC have been doing the right thing. We adhere to all of our licensing codes and conditions and regulatory changes. We voluntarily introduced 20 codes and 100 measures to increase standards across the sector. Meanwhile, the black market are thriving, trying to eat our breakfast, lunch and dinner. And unfortunately, there's very little that's being done about that. We know that 1.5 million Brits are spending 4.3 billion in the black market, and it's something that should be incumbent upon all of us, industry, government, the regulator, to tackle because it's in nobody's interest. They pay no tax, there's no player protection. So that's one of our big focus areas.
Indeed, and prompts me with my next question. Is it an existential threat, the black market, or is that a bit of an exaggeration?
I think it's a growing threat. So we've been tracking the size and the scale of the black market for a couple of years. And what we have seen is that there is a correlation between the number of additional regulatory requirements that are being put on the regulated sector and the increase in the size and scale of the black market. Now, that's probably obvious and makes sense because if customers betting with BGC members are being asked for intrusive documents, which they don't want to give, they're unlikely to just stop gambling and, go to the pub. They still want to gamble, and so they just go onto Google and search, non-GamStop operators, and a whole list of options come up with better bets, better bonuses, better options. It's really attractive. They maybe don't know that it's a black market. Sometimes they might know it's a black market, but are going there anyway. And so we're seeing that as regulation becomes more restrictive, you effectively push customers into the black market because they want the product and they can't get it in the normal place that they would go to get it. So I'm not sure it's an existential threat, but it will be if regulation isn't proportionate going forward. if we see the likes of Germany, the regulation that's been implemented in Germany over the last few years in the UK, then I think it definitely would be an existential threat. But it's one that we need to tackle now.
Of course.
Not wait for that.
And in a nutshell, is proportionate regulation the answer, do you think?
Yes, I think it's a mixture. So it's almost a bit like push and pull. We need proportionate regulation to make sure that we're not pushing people into the arms of the criminal underworld. But we also need to make sure that where it currently already exists, there are powers to tackle and take down illegal sites, illegal land-based casinos that are popping up in hotel rooms offering a better experience because they don't have to adhere to the regulation. I don't think you can really make a difference if you have one without the other. We need both working in parallel.
As I see it now, one of the roles of the BGC is to promote its members, obviously, promote the members' interests or the interests of its members. How good are we as an industry at promoting ourselves, do you think?
So, interesting question. It's one of our new strategic priorities at the BGC. So, when I took over, it was very clear that the challenges that the industry are going to be facing over the next 3 to 5 years are very different than the ones that the industry has faced over the previous 3 to 5 years. The last 5 years have been dominated by the Gambling Act Review white paper, and obviously the industry had to put all of its efforts and attentions into that. As I said, I think we're now hopefully coming to an end point of that. And therefore, the BGC is going to have more space to be able to be louder and prouder about what its members do, the positive role that we play, locally and nationally when it comes to economic contributions, but also the role that we play in the tourism, entertainment and leisure industry. So I think we've been good at it up until now, but we haven't necessarily had enough space because we've been firefighting the regulatory challenges. I'm hoping that now we will, and then we have the opportunity to make the case better on those points.
When I look around this industry, I see brilliant people at brilliant companies doing brilliant things, right? I then go to a dinner party and tell people I work in gambling and they go, oh, as if, poor you. Why is there a disconnect between what the public sees and what we see ourselves?
So one of the things that attracted me to the industry was actually the great people and the complex issues. I think the industry has come a long way in a positive sense from when I started 10 years ago at Ladbrokes. We have, as I said, implemented over 100 measures to raise standards. There are loads of great initiatives if you look across the board in terms of sports sponsorship or charity support for safer gambling initiatives. But there is a disconnect between the reality of what the industry do and the public debate. Why is that? I think because the media are sometimes misinformed or ill-informed or misguided. They might have a reason to want to be hostile to the industry. And the role of the BGC, I think, is to be the custodian of statistics and facts and reality. And again, we haven't necessarily had the chance to do that. So one of the things that the BGC is looking to do under my leadership is create a data hub, so that we have the statistics that we can use to dispel the myths and then hopefully over time change that public narrative. Because it's a great place to work. It's an amazing industry. I'm really proud to be the CEO of the BGC. I am proud and enjoy telling people at dinner parties that I work in the gambling industry, but you're right, the reaction isn't always positive.
Yeah, well, maybe I need to go to different dinner parties. Yeah. Maybe that's the challenge. One of the really positive things that this industry is doing, I think, is the empowerment of women.
Yeah.
And I know it's something you're passionate about and have been involved in. Are we winning that fight? Are we getting better at that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there is a longer fight to be had, but we're definitely winning the battle. It's probably what I would say rather than the war. So it's an issue that I've been hugely passionate about since I joined, but more so probably in the last 3 to 4 years. I have joined the board of an amazing organisation called Global Gaming Women, who are an American not-for-profit organisation who have been going for about 10 years, but only really started outside of the US in the last 3 to 4 years. And we've rapidly been expanding our membership just by getting out and educating people at all of the various conferences and any platform that I have the ability to do so on. So thank you for that, about the organisation, which is to promote, encourage and inspire more women within the industry to stay within the industry and work their way up in whatever shape or form that looks like. It is difficult. It's definitely better than it was. But I think there's a real important role for female role models to play in the industry to show people that, if you want to, do whatever type of role it is, then you can. So supporting women and almost encouraging them to have their own personal board of directors is a big focus for me.
Okay. I'm looking forward to seeing Global Gaming Women's merchandise, which I think is on
Yes,
its way. I saw you repost that the other day. I spoke to Jennifer Innes at Betting Jobs yesterday and asked her if there was anything she wanted me to ask you. And she said one of the hot button subjects at the moment amongst Global Gaming Women, amongst other women in the industry, was women being judged on men's standards and how that plays out and the effect that it has. As a working mum, do you feel that that's something that's come your way in recent years?
Yeah, I mean, so I think I've been relatively lucky. The issues that I've faced as a female in the industry have been minor, I would say. But there's obviously a broad range of issues that women face across the industry, which we need to stamp out. I think rather than kind of men versus women standards, I think the probably bigger point is about just not judging people. So allowing people to, juggle whatever it is their responsibilities and commitments are without judging them. And it happens in the boardroom and it happens at the school gate. Unfortunately, I am not at school as much as I would like to for my kids, but I've made the conscious decision that I would like to work full time because I feel professionally fulfilled doing that, and therefore that makes me a better parent. I've always had really strong female role models, from my granny to my mum, who's worked, several jobs and shifts just to give us the best chance in life. And I think it's really important that we don't judge others by some set of standards, whether that's gender specific or otherwise. Everybody's doing their best in whatever way they choose to do it, and we should support each other, not pick holes in one another.
Amen to that. Your predecessor at the BGC was Michael Dugar.
Yeah.
And Michael had, I don't know Michael, but I know of him and I've spoken to people who know him. He had a leadership style, a certain leadership style, probably honed on the backbenches and, a sort of rumbustious, Labour backbencher. How is your leadership style different to his, if it is? And does being a woman, this is a bit of a generalisation, but does that make you have a different leadership style, do you think?
Probably. I hadn't quite thought of it like that before, but probably. I think it's, again, maybe more personalities than gender. So we definitely do have a very different leadership style. We are yin and yang in a positive sense. I would describe mine, I mean, you might be better asking the team than me, but I would describe mine as probably democratic but decisive.
Okay.
So
the 2 Ds.
Yeah. I like to get everybody's views in a particular argument or debate, hear all the various aspects. Happy for my mind to be persuaded or dissuaded either way, but equally don't like decisions by committee. So I'll hear all of the various arguments and then I make the decision and stick with it. I'm probably less rambunctious than Michael is, but as you say, that's probably because we have very different backgrounds and I didn't have to cut my teeth on the backbenches of the Labour Party, whereas he did. So I think we both bring positive benefits to the BGC, which the other one probably doesn't.
Yeah, of course. One woman who's been in the headlines recently, obviously, is Stella David, who got the full-time job as CEO at Entain. Congratulations to her. What will she bring to the role, do you think? Did you work under her?
Yes, I did. So she's absolutely brilliant. She is a positive force of nature, really well liked within Entain, definitely when I was there, and I'm sure still is. She is very honest, direct, strategic. She can take a whole range of complex issues and basically cut to the chase to get stuff done. She has the full backing of her executive team, and I think she'll be really great for Entain, and I'm delighted she's there.
Looking back at your time at Entain, what was your role there then, and how did that sort of develop, I guess?
Yeah, so I joined when it was Ladbrokes as a standalone in 2015 as their UK lead on public affairs and regulatory issues. And at the time, I think it was quite fortuitous because regulation was rising up the boardroom's agenda just because of the period of time in which we were living through. And so I managed to survive the Ladbrokes and Coral merger a year later after I joined, and I also survived the GVC acquisition of Ladbrokes and Coral in 2018 and picked up additional roles and remits along the way. So ended up leading our global public affairs and regulatory issues with safer gambling and DE&I added in there. Absolutely loved my time there. Had always been a customer. Wasn't allowed to bet with Ladbrokes when I was there, but always been a customer of the industry. So like the products, like the complex issues, like trying to find solutions, like trying to take the skills and the learnings from the UK market and extrapolate it internationally. So yeah, I absolutely loved my time there. And yeah, joined the BGC, which I never would have thought of 10 years ago when I started out in the industry.
Well, you lead me on to my next question. How did that come about? Lots of transitions, I guess, at Entain, which maybe served you in good stead for where you are now and seeing how the industry is changing. But how did the role come about?
Yeah, so the BGC were recruiting for a new CEO, and at first I thought, shall I apply? Shall I not apply? Shall I apply? Yeah, why don't I apply? Didn't actually expect to get the role, but wanted a challenge, wanted to broaden my horizons. Absolutely love working at Entain, but had done a similar thing over the years and wanted to just broaden my knowledge of the industry, which obviously running the trade association gives you the great opportunity to do. So stuck my hat in the ring. As I was going through the process, was more and more encouraged and hungry for the role, because you have to sit down and think about what would you do differently and how would you like to put your stamp on it. And so my interest and just grew throughout the process. And here I am 7 months later.
Absolutely. You mentioned your family earlier in the school gate and that sort of thing. I've seen posts that you've put on LinkedIn about your 2 boys, I'm sure you're very proud of. Tell us a little bit more about your background and life outside of the BGC. Irish name, but noticeably English accent.
Yes, yeah. So both parents are from Northern Ireland. Came over in the 70s to escape the Troubles in Ireland and stayed here ever since. Apparently, I had a very strong Northern Irish accent until I was 4 years old.
Did you?
And went to primary school and obviously mixed with the North London speaking, sounding kids and then completely lost it and can barely even do an Irish accent now if I tried. But really proud of my Irish heritage, have a huge Irish Catholic family still in the north. My sons absolutely adore going there. We try and spend as much time as we possibly can there, visiting all the hundreds of first cousins, second cousins, relatives. So yeah, really proud of my Irish heritage. Grew up in North London, live just outside in Hertfordshire, have 2 boys aged 8 and 5. Really proud of them, keep me extremely balanced. You know, when I've had a challenging day at work and you go home and their biggest issue is that they haven't managed to sprint as fast as their friend, it's, it keeps me on the straight and narrow.
It does indeed. I have 2 girls and similar kind of story. But you read history at university.
Yeah.
So did I. And then you did war studies as a master's. Was history an educational means to an end, or are you a passionate sort of historian?
So probably neither.
Okay.
It was a subject I was interested in. So I chose, when I wanted to go to university, I chose to do a subject that I was interested in rather than because I knew that it would lead on to, you know, bigger and better things. And then when I was doing my undergrad in history, basically every single module I chose was related to war studies. Subconsciously. And so I was talking to my professor at the time and I said, I'd quite like to do a master's, again, not really knowing why or what for, but I was interested in it. And he said, have you thought about war studies? Because that seems to be your kind of interest area. And so I did war studies at King's. And people that I met on my war studies course at King's were interning in Parliament. So you can kind of see the connecting thread.
Yes.
I then thought, that sounds quite interesting. Maybe I'll give that a go. And that's how I actually started off my professional working career.
Yes.
So have never really had a plan professionally, but I've just kind of gone with the flow and taken opportunities as they've come. And we'll see where it goes.
And I think your first, if not one of your first roles was working for an MP.
Yes.
Have you ever been tempted, will you ever be tempted to become an MP?
Never. So I learnt very early on when I was working for Sir Philip Davis, who was the MP for Shipley. It's an amazing career and choice, but it's not an amazing career choice for me. So I take my hat off to every single MP who does it, but no, it's not something that I would like to do in the future. Fair
enough. You then went into public affairs. I guess that's still politics, but maybe on the other side of the fence. You were at Asda, is that right?
Yeah.
So you went from sort of FMCG to betting? Was that a sort of natural transition? Did you, when you moved to Ladbrokes, was it? You mentioned that you were a Ladbrokes customer or an Entain customer as such, but betting in the family, and was it sort of easy to get into?
Yeah, so it wasn't necessarily a conscious choice, but there are lots of parallels between Asda and Ladbrokes. They're both, big kind of British beasts, very consumer facing. So there are parallels there in terms of the public affairs opportunity and challenges. I have always gambled recreationally. My dad is also a gambler. We used to do all of the Grand National bets together as a family, still do, sweepstakes, all that sort of stuff. So again, I didn't really have a plan, but I went from Asda and became a special advisor under the previous government. And then sadly, it lost my job because my minister lost her seat at the 2015 election. So I was looking for a job. And I thought there are similar opportunities within retail, consumer-facing retail and gambling. And so thought, I'll give it a go. Can combine two of my interests.
Very good. Always nice to do in a job if you can. And Ladbrokes became GVC, and GVC became Entain, and you left Entain to come to the BGC, which just brings us back full circle. We always leave these podcasts with a set of questions to get a little bit more information about people, I guess, in terms of what they like and what they don't like. But so rapid fire, you're not allowed to think about them. But if I was to put you on the spot, favourite band or singer?
The Who.
Oh, really? Interesting. I had you down as U2, but that shows you how much I know. North London, you see, I was thinking.
So I used to, I played the drums.
Okay, right.
And Won't Get Fooled Again has an amazing drum solo by Keith Moon, who I aspired to be when I was 15.
Okay.
And here I am at the BGC as CEO, so you can see how that worked out.
Got it, yeah.
But I still love The Who.
Well, I like Keith Moon's drumming, obviously. Hopefully his career choices were not similar to yours, but anyway. Okay, last meal on Earth, sadly, if it was your last day on Earth, what would that be?
My mum's roast chicken dinner with all the trimmings, followed by the melt in the middle chocolate dessert cake thing.
Why not? Excellent. Okay, and if you could give aspiring and up-and-coming execs in this industry one piece of advice, what would that be?
I would trust and follow your instincts. Be yourself and get yourself a personal board of directors to invest in your own development.
Okay.
I know that was more than one.
No, but it all seems to flow into one, so that's fine. But Grainne, thanks ever so much for letting us into the BGC today and giving up your time to speak to us.
Pleasure.
It's been great seeing you in the role, and wish you all the best for the future.
Thanks.